From Flourish DX, this is the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. With workplace mental health becoming a safety prerogative, this is the source of information on psychological injury prevention and health promotion.
Welcome to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. My name is Jason and I'm one of the hosts of the show. The aim of the podcast is to rapidly increase the knowledge and application of psychological health and safety in workplaces worldwide. To help with this, we have regular guests from around the world who are leading the way in this important area. But before I introduce our guest and topic for today, allow me to introduce my co-host, Joelle Mitchell. How are you today, Joelle?
Sorry, I forgot, and I looked at you when you started talking, and then I looked away, and I think that made it worse.
Yeah, it did.
But then I realised I can just look at the screen and look at you there without you seeing it in your peripheral vision.
That's probably the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just like shut your eyes. Or...
No.
Yeah, we really. Yeah, when I say we, I mean I really need to move beyond this, and I don't think our listeners need to hear it anymore.
Probably not.
Just, Jason, get over your yips. Just like be a professional. You've done over 200 podcast episodes with this woman. Come on.
Yeah. What's happening? I had a ridiculous conversation with my son the other night. He was worried about paying taxes when he grows up.
It's a legitimate fear.
So I was explaining all of the different forms of tax and how it works and how mostly it just gets paid automatically and you don't actually have to do very much about it from a day-to-day basis and we'll think about it. So I just went into phenomenally boring levels of detail about tax until he finally interrupted and asked if we could just get on with the story, please.
Yeah, okay. Well, speaking of our conference and me trying to secure Jimmy Reese for 2025.
That's not what I was talking about at all.
No. He did an awesome video the other day on the guy who decides taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
Okay. Show Ronan. It explains everything.
I don't think it does.
I think it does.
I think it will make him more confused about tax.
I know they go into stamp duty and income tax. And
Yeah, but they don't talk about how it's collected.
Is that what his main concern was?
Well, his main concern was that he would forget, like that there were too many taxes and that he would forget to pay one of them and then he'd get in trouble.
Yeah, I don't think the government would allow you to forget.
No. So that's, yeah.
You'll get plenty of reminders, don't worry.
That was it. So then, he literally just interrupted me mid-sentence and was like, can we just read the story now? Yeah.
Okay.
So I did my job. I de-escalated his concerns about tax.
All right, show him the Jimmy Reese one and then it'll pique him again. So
I'd rather not.
Okay. Well, taxes. Yeah, favourite topic. Let's introduce our guest for today.
Yeah.
Okay, so she is a veterinary clinician specialising in companion animal practice. She's the creator of the Vet Thrive Wellness Program and recent winner of the New Zealand HR Wellness Program Award and Supreme Award. She is the founding director of the Strand Veterinarian. Welcome to the podcast, Megan Alderson.
Oh, kia ora, and thank you for having me.
Kia ora, thanks for coming along. We've been long time connected on LinkedIn, and it's great to finally have you on the podcast.
Yeah, I felt that was like more stalking on my behalf, actually, but here I am. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's what people should take from this. Yeah,
you whatever works.
Yeah, stalk Joelle or I long enough, you'll get on the podcast.
Well,
you will.
Stalk Jason, preferably. And the first vet that we've had on the podcast as well, Megan.
I know. I'm very excited to represent, an industry that is somewhat in crisis and be talking about psych health and safety, which is really... I think it's really 2024, isn't it? It's taken a long time to get here. I've been listening to the podcast since you guys started. And, I'm really glad to see that, we're having a conference at the end of this year, a wellbeing and business symposium that I'm helping to run. And we've got a whole day on psych health and safety and the risks and mitigation, etc., which is, somewhat to do with what you guys have done.
Good. Well done, Jason.
No, that's terrific. No, I know that there's a few vets in my circles, including Phil Richmond, who you might be aware of in the US, and there's a lot of people advocating for change, like you say, in an industry and a profession that desperately needs it. So, yeah, looking forward to unpacking that with you today.
Before we get into that, what podcasts do you like to listen to, Megan?
Oh my gosh. Well, like I had to narrow it down to 6. I'm a bit of a self-help junkie, and I do find, I'm a business owner. I've got on the deck as a clinician, and also have my passion project, which is wellbeing in the profession and advocating for the people that work in it. And so my time in the car is like precious, just to and from commuting, and I had to narrow it down to 6. So I'll go for it really fast. Well, definitely psych health and safety, because I think you want to say your aim, you've definitely made the difference, which is really to get the, more information out there faster. So that's really helped me create what I've done to date. I still love This Working Life. I think I really like Antipodean podcasts. I've just wrote the list, and they're all from our side of the world. But Lisa Leong, she's got some really good tips and advice for us on the ground working as practice managers, etc. Recently, the neurodivergent women's podcast. I don't know if you guys know about that one, but I was suggested it. A veterinarian was on it, and we have a fair amount of neurodiversity, as you can imagine, in our industry, just because of our personality makeup. And I think the more I was listening, I'm like, hey, that does sound a lot like me. So I'm now like hooked. I'm like, oh, need to learn a bit more about this. I'm Sick as a Dog would be something I could recommend to all your listeners if you wanted to learn more about the veterinary industry and what's happening in it. Carolyn Winter, she's an award winner Australian journalist who actually did a series based on Sophie's legacy or some of the stuff that was been going on since a young lady died in Australia a couple of years ago. And really, really good listening entertainment. And then, of course, the Vet Thrive Collective, which is my own podcast. I still go back and have a listen to that, because it's almost like having your own sort of shrink sessions. It's like being able to talk to people around the world. Mike Scanlon was one I was listening to the other day, and just learn more about how we can help ourselves and cross that bridge to thriving in a profession. So those are the top 6, and you're on it. Good news.
Great, Megan. A few there that we haven't heard of before. So it's always good to, have some variety for the listeners to note down as well.
You know what? I actually noticed Tim from our team, latest edition, he was actually on Lisa Leong's podcast recently. He hasn't told the team about it, I don't think, yet.
Yeah, Tim's a bit of a dark horse, I think. He keeps things close to his chest. That's all right. We'll get around that.
You'll find it, and share it through the team's channel.
Secret talent.
Tell us about your professional career, please, Megan.
Well, this spans 3 decades, so I'll make it as brief as possible. I started a new grad. We went to Massey University, basically. There's only one university in New Zealand to become a veterinarian. It's a 5-year degree. And then out you go, little bird, into the big wide world, and actually start learning a lot about how to be a veterinary practitioner every day. And I started down South Island in mixed practice, so that's anything from a canary to a wapiti stag on any given day. And I found this a really good foundation for me as a veterinarian, but also learned a lot about poor mental health at that stage, because it was 24/7. Not a lot of support, lots of tragedies. We call them bone bags, so things that didn't go right. Not a lot of support around that. And I took a break from that and went over to the UK, as we did back in the day, where you can travel with a degree, and had a great time, working around the UK and traveling Europe. I also did a stint in Canada for a year or 2 and became a veterinarian over there. We had to do extra exams for that, but also experienced, the North American way. And then back to New Zealand in the 90s, I transitioned from being a mixed practice veterinarian. I got my 3rd concussion, and I thought, well, time to call it quits. And
hold up. How do you get a concussion? Like a horse kicking you in the head or something?
That one was another whoppity stag. Okay, so that was like we get close and personal. You can imagine, if we go into our, back in the day when health and safety wasn't really a big thing, there's me, inside a shed with probably 30 whoppity stags, giving them a shave up and an injection, and you can imagine how that goes sometimes. So the only protection you had was between you and the stag was the one in between. So we were sort of crushed so that they couldn't actually get up. But man, as I said, one got me one day, and I thought, I think this is it. I'm out. So that's health and safety back in the day.
Wapiti stag, is that a type of sheep or something?
No, wapiti stag is a deer, and it's a really big one. Okay, so that's as big as a cow.
Yeah, okay. Ouch.
Jason, you obviously don't have that many deer farms in Australia, yeah? Not in Perth, anyway.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, Joelle's the closest thing to a farmer I know, and they just had labradoodles.
Well, no, they currently have
I've got a
labradoodles.
Labradoodle.
But,
You didn't grow up in a labradoodle.
no, but we definitely had cows and sheep and horses. So that was. I think there was some places with alpacas. There's a couple of emu farms around. I don't ever remember seeing any deer farms, but that's not to say that they're not around.
But no, I think our listeners are going to thank us for asking the question, so they don't have to Google it. Wapiti stag, it's a type of deer. Yeah.
Yeah, have a look how big he is. Anyways.
Yeah, so after your third concussion, you decided
I'm gonna quit this, this area and go down the place that I guess caused my passion was definitely dogs. I've got a Labradoodle too, and I had a Labrador who was literally the love of my life. Don't tell anyone. But yeah, I retrained and ended up in Christchurch and was, looking at that stage to, open my own practice. But I was really having some mental health issues at the time. I think it's, that I quite like Thich Nhat Hanh in his, mud, no lotus, and that was definitely a mud time of my life. I was definitely suffering. I was pretty much ill-equipped to deal with that suffering. And like so many of your podcast guests, our passion for this area comes from having walked it ourselves or having had a period of time in our lives where it was really tough and we did walk on the train tracks. And from there, I branched out into companion and practice, and I love it. We've got great purposeful work. I absolutely love my work. And although, a lot of veterinarians feel that the work has got a lot to do with our mental health issues, I think for me, work was very purposeful and positive. So, I kicked out of that space and actually ended up in Auckland in 2004, up in the North Island, and had a new family, new life, and really did flourish. And then, at that stage, I really wanted my own practice. So Big Girls Pants went on eventually, and I started my own practice in 2009 and grew from 3 of us, I guess, then to we've got a team of about 20, 25. So we oscillate at the moment because we've got a lot of flexi work hours. But yeah, I've just really enjoyed the whole journey. I think a lot of suffering, a lot of mud, being a business owner, going through an eviction at one point, and having to move the practice into another location, which isn't easy because a veterinary practice as a business is like a little hospital, like a mini hospital. You've probably all realised that. But if you look out the back, you've got, so much equipment and rooms and high tech that goes into our veterinary clinic. And yeah, I just felt like, as a new business owner, I was actually feeling quite lonely. I felt quite isolated. There wasn't, I felt, a lot of support for us. And we got together and started a group called Veterinary Essential Solutions, really just to start having the chat about mental health, especially women in the industry, and supporting each other. And that grew to about a 2,000 membership, just, viral basically, because there was a need out there. And yeah, and from there it sort of again, COVID, that wasn't much fun for any business owner. We hung on by the skin of our teeth because as essential workers, we were on the ground every day, which was kind of good and kind of bad. We didn't get a break from it all. And animal ownership grew about 30% during that time. So we had this sort of perfect storm of, very difficult work conditions and everyone wanting to see us, which was, how we all survived, and we're very thankful for that. However, it was pretty hard on our teams, and we've come out of that quite fatigued and exhausted, very similar to healthcare around the world. We've definitely got some pretty poor stats and continue to have poor stats around mental health, wellbeing, and death by suicide. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And I guess my Vet Thrive program came out of that. Like, that was the seed, and I was actually stuck in a holiday without family for a month. And we got stuck down in the South Island in Wanaka, which is my Turinga Waiwai, or somewhere I love to be. And it just gave me the space to make a program that could be implementable, accessible, put into a practice and just figure it out. And then away we went. We did it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a bit about your program soon, but you, related to that, you've won a couple of significant awards in New Zealand. So, and that's what kind of highlighted, hey, you're someone who listened to the podcast and you were able to take away some of the key things that we talked about, and you're able to create a program and win an award.
It's really our award, I like to think.
I'd like to
I'll
think
write your name on the side.
in the acceptance speech that we got a good
we
mention.
got a big mention.
Yeah. But it goes to show, right, if you are a learner and you've got a passion in this area, that you can actually have a big impact. So yeah, but before we get into that, which we're going to explore in a bit, but first of all, what the awards that you won, what are they and what do they relate to?
So HRNZ is a foundation that supports growth of people and culture, basically. And we learned a little bit more about it because one of my veterinary professional staff, Amy, she was a practice manager, kicked around psychology for a little bit, and then she actually retrained in human resources. And she we were at the time thinking about, like, how do we make change or wellbeing and bring it into the workplace, because I think in 2015 we had sort of a purpose. We actually realized that the people were going to be the thing that actually makes us successful. So we had a purpose, but we didn't really know what to do. And with Amy Rain, she helped me sort of create like kind of a roadmap, thinking, how do we make a better place for veterinarians to work? And we used that roadmap that we've been working on for a number of years, and she became the HRNZ New Graduate of the Year. So we went to the big awards ceremony, and I thought, well, all these other companies are doing this. Why can't we too? Why can't we actually get up there and we thought, give it a punt, right? and really, true to the goddess or the god, I never thought we would actually have a show in hell, really, of actually winning the award, because we were up against PwC, University of Canterbury, huge corporations that have huge resources. But I thought even just trying, or actually, the process of actually filling out the form for the HRNZ Wellness Program Award would be worth us doing, because we'll learn something from that process. And then, lo and behold, yes, we won it, and did the conga all the way up there, much to the joy of the guests that were there. There was a couple of thousand people, and then very, very shocked to say that a small business could get up and then win the Supreme Award, which is basically the winner of all the winners, and we took that away as well. So yeah, it was sort of a moment, it was unbelievable, but I think deserved. And my team and I have put our heart and soul into making something happen, and proved that we can actually, as a small business, implement something and track it and use that data to show that you looking after your people can actually make a difference to the bottom line, basically, or your profitability or sustainability of your business. So quite exciting stuff, really. And yeah, really, it was, phenomenal to be recognised for it.
Yeah, and great to see a wellness program or a program that was about, fostering better mental health, being recognised amongst other like types of awards for the Supreme Award. What out of interest, what sort of competition were you up against when it came to the Supreme Award when, it was obviously not like for like comparisons?
Oh my gosh, yeah, they had, there was basically individual awards. So there was HR of the Year awards for a new graduate and senior people. There was the People and Projects Award, which we actually did enter as well, but, we didn't actually get into that category. And there was, as I said, that it sort of was a list of awards about 13 long. They were just for every category that a business could achieve in HR wise. So it was about their practitioners, about their programs that made differences, not just wellness programs. And as you said, it was really nice to see that they recognise that improving people's wellbeing or wellness, mental health wise, on the ground is something that needs to happen and can be done with very little or few resources as well.
Yeah, awesome.
So before we get into actually talking about your program, can you firstly tell us, you've flagged this a little bit already, but tell us about your industry and the need for that wellness program into that environment?
Yeah, so as a industry, and it's coming out a lot more in other industries now too, I believe, what I know. But we've always been known to have somewhere between, depending on the study you read, a 2 and 4 times increase in suicide rates compared to other industries or the general population. And, there's been lots of studies about the reason for this. It's kind of fairly complex. But what we know also is that women are more at risk. And our industry is now probably over 90 to 95% women, if you count workers in the industry rather than just veterinarians. So we've got, a team of people that work in the same environment, and I liken it to the All Blacks. I guess the veterinarians are the Fords, they're the ones pushing from the front that you might see. Then we're supported by a team of nurses, and they're supported by a customer service team. And I was really interested in that podcast from one of your first responders, and he was saying that the people that were affected most mental health wise from some of the trauma was the people that were on the phone, and I think that's very similar in our industry now with the customer care or the service out the front are the ones that are dealing with the public directly and can often be more traumatized, and we saw that in some of our data than the veterinarians themselves. So so our industry has also got a lot of unrecognized trauma. So I don't think I even learned about trauma until I was in my 50s, and I'm not that much older than that. So I'm like, how did I get 33 years in the industry and no one talked to me about trauma? How did that happen? I just don't know. And in 2024, or actually just recently, a couple of months ago, a study was finally came out from a big Norwegian study, a lot of veterinarians, about, euthanasia. If we euthanize five or more animals a week, we do actually have an increase in serious suicidal ideation. And it seems like a bit of a no-brainer, but we didn't know it. It was really the normalization of the trauma that we go through or mental health issues within the industry had put our blinkers on. We didn't like to talk about it, so stigmatism is very high in our industry because and they are looking at changing this now, but you can't get registered if you tick that box that you've got a mental health issue. I think, just general, just not knowing, what vicarious secondary trauma, cumulative trauma, and PTSD does to us on a daily basis in our work has been, has held us back. And I did highlight to you that, I'm a big Cat Page and Tony Montagny fan. They're my favourite episodes. And I do go back and look and think about those guys actually did a study in 2014 on the veterinary industry, and they had some really good suggestions and data on what to do next. But we are micro businesses, like we're usually 20 or less, and run by owner operators who don't have great managerial or leadership skills. So there's a lot of things that have really hampered our progress as far as an industry is concerned. And here we are in 2024, and I still feel like we're circling the wagons. We haven't got a lot further than what they actually highlighted to us in 2014 as far as what we could be doing in our workplaces to make our people more safe. So that's where we're at now. But it is. It's stuff. This is the stuff that will make the difference, right? Just talking about it.
Yeah. Does the degree cover kind of how to deal with the owners of the pets that are emoting?
No. So again, no. There is Michael Meehan, who's just he's there's very few of them in the world, but communication specialists. So people who actually talk about communication and managing conflict. And he was a lecturer over in Canada. I can't name the university, but he was lecturing over there, and he's now a New Zealand citizen, and he's actually just started lecturing down in Massey talking about communication. So I think that's a big piece. Yeah, you're right. That we're not trained in it. And guess what? We're in conflict every single day. Personality type wise, we're quite introverted as a profession, and then to be put into a position where you're face to face with someone who is conflict usually over the cost of veterinary care is difficult. It's a lot of moral injury going on every single day. And economic euthanasia has increased in this current economic climate. And we're on the ground trying to deal with this without any skills or knowledge on how to do that.
Yeah, it's tough. And this has come up, with a lot of guests from a lot of different professions that we've talked about, where there is that that significant trauma exposure inherent in the work that you're doing. But unlike psychology, where we're actually explicitly trained in how to deal with that, the steps that we should take, having clinical supervision, engaging in reflective practice, all of that sort of thing is actually saying, yeah, here's how you protect yourself in those situations. But yet, degrees like law, like veterinary science, is it? And a range of other types of qualifications where there is also that inherent trauma within the role. They just don't get that training in the self-care and the psychological PPE, if you like, that's necessary to actually be able to maintain your own health and well-being throughout your career. So, and adding vets to that list.
Yes. And I think, we have a very sort of patriarchal model of working still. So, despite the fact that we're a highly feminized profession, we still work, in a way that makes it really difficult to be, a mother, have a menstrual cycle, have menopause, etc. And add that onto our propensity to be, and this is not being facetious or jokey, neuroticism is part of our personality profile, because I guess neuroticism meaning that we worry a lot. We're like we're like old AI. We're like always kind of going through, like, here's the information in front of us. What could it be, and what am I going to do next? And that just goes into the night. So we never learned how to stop that self-talk and worry, and then put in there long hours, low pay, a whole lot of other stuff, then it's just a recipe for disaster, really. And I talked to an intern the other day who's just first year out, and I asked her about trauma. We were having a talk about how our approach to psych health and safety in the practice, and she said they had no trauma training, so this is like right to date, there is absolutely none, but we're actually starting to talk about it. Now, I think stigmatism in the industry is still strong, which is hard to believe in 2024. However, the take a cup of concrete, I did it in my way, in the day, is really worn thin now, and now we're actually paying attention to keeping our people because we can't keep them at the moment. The attrition rate is terrible. We have creating another problem with the veterinary shortage, and that creates animal welfare issues across the globe. So time to put a finger in the dike, and actually, for me, it was like health and safety really sparked that. I guess the impetus to do something, as well as think about how to create solutions to those complex or wicked problems that you talk about on your podcast here.
Yeah, and obviously in your industry, very complex, very wicked, and it's not just the veterinarians; it's also the other staff, right, working in the clinics and the practices.
Absolutely.
And that sort of thing as well. Do you need more psych health and safety in your life? Then head over to the Flourish DX Academy for several free on-demand e-learning courses. If you're an internal professional, follow Flourish DX on Eventbrite to register for any of our free fortnightly interactive webinars. Our flagship professional practice program is also exclusively available for internal professionals. The 12-week course blends theory, applied practice, and interaction with other professionals through live lectures and a monthly community of practice session. Find out more about all these learning opportunities or inquire about a bespoke in-house training at the Flourish DX Academy, www.45003.org. Now back to this episode. So going back to your award-winning program, I'd like to unpack that a little bit more if we can. So I believe it was obviously you're not going to solve all of the issues associated with your industry within this one program. So what was the specific problem that you were trying to solve with it?
Well, it actually started from thinking about the integrated approach that we need to protect, promote, and respond. And we've started to understand how to respond a little bit better. HR check-ins and having an EAP and encouraging people to go. We were doing a little bit of promoting the positive of the profession, because it is a great job. There's no two ways out there. It's nothing better than having a puppy licking your face, and that's true. That's better than a psychiatrist. And
I think it's frowned upon for psychiatrists to lick their patients' faces. But.
Fair enough too. But I think there wasn't a lot in the proactive space. So when I thought we're actually very good at preventative medicine. So as veterinarians, we talk preventative medicine for animals every single day as GPs. And we talk about what you eat and, how much access you got, exercise and water and making sure they get the right rest and environmental enrichment. We talk about it every single day, but we never do it for ourselves. So that whole, as you said, that self-care piece was very, very much missing or blind to us. So the problem we're trying to solve is really to care for the carers. And definitely I had a light bulb moment when I had a health and safety person come into the practice, and he said, what's your sticky? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, stuff that's going to kill you. And I was like, ooh, okay, well, the cat's probably going to scratch you up and a dog might bite you, but it's probably not going to kill you. And immediately I'm like, okay, I better go and check all the plugs in the practice, make sure the drips aren't getting into them. And then the second thing was really that people kill themselves through toxicity. And, what is the access like in my practice, and what am I doing about it? What am I, what else can I be doing to actually prevent that from happening in a I guess it's a sort of a stack of cards, personality-wise, hard work-wise, pressure in the work environment-wise, conflict. moral injury. We've got it all. We've got all the ticks in the box. And could I build a culture of wellbeing within the practice that was so strong that we could actually mitigate that? Could we, as an employer, show that it's actually a really good employer brand? If you can actually show that you're looking after your people, people will work for you and they'll stay working for you and they'll stay happy in their workplace for you. And then, retraction and a talent is pretty few and far between, and it's getting less and less as people kick out of the industry. So really just retaining them. I think the stats in Australia came out and they said that 40% of the roles took over 12 months to fill, and the vets on the ground are having to work twice as hard, and that's just not sustainable. So those were, really what problem we're trying to solve is to retain our talent. Show that by looking after your people, you are a good employer, and that will mean success in business. And also really, have a culture of wellbeing and just show how powerful that can be, attracting not only talent but also people to your practice and community, because people choose to work with people that actually look after their team well. And of course you can tell that walking into a practice, can't you? If there's no eye contact and no smiles, then you must be thinking, are these people going to be looking after my animal? I don't know. I don't like it, and the animal will be like tucked tail down and turned out running out the door, because they can certainly feel it before we can. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, what was the intervention then, right? So that's the goal. That's the problem that you're trying to solve. But what did you actually do? Because I know our listeners really like what can I put into practice in my own, work or industry?
Well, as I said, unfortunately, there wasn't really much on the market that I could just plug in. The plug and play would have been quite attractive, but I am quite creative, so that's quite nice. And it was a nice project for me, as I said, during a lockdown. And I did an MBSR course, or mindfulness-based stress reduction course, and I was part of a guinea pig study, actually, of 10 veterinarians. It was a thesis study done by Anna Jokovic. And she was proposed that by doing the John Kabat-Zinn study, 8-week course, you would actually improve your scores on chronic pain, anxiety, depression, etc. And I think what the study did show is that we liked talking to each other and we liked the peer support. So that was strongly came out of the study. However, the learnings through that, I thought actually it worked really, really well for me. I'd had chronic insomnia since I've been in mid-30s. I have, anxiety on it, having to control that on a daily basis. And it really worked well for me. So I thought, let's just try something very similar. And we'll start with looking at, what are we basically doing wrong in the profession as far as, do we have the basic physiological needs? And let's just start there. And that was off Maslow's triangle. I looked at it do we rest during the workday? No, we never do. We oftentimes don't have lunch. If you have a pee break, you're lucky. Well, we work long hours and don't go home. Do we eat well? We walk in there with a V and a pie, I think that's going to sustain us throughout the afternoon. And do we even know how to breathe? Like most of the time we've got our shoulders up beside our ears, and that stays like that overnight. As we continue to ruminate and be insomniacs. So what if we learned how to actually breathe during our pressurized work days? How good would that be for our body at night? And all those things then fell into I don't know if you're familiar with the Māori mental health model, Te Whare Tapawhā.
I heard about it recently on my trip to New Zealand, but it's probably worthwhile sharing. Yep.
Yeah, so Mason Jury, it was 1984 that he came out with it, but I think it really actually, I like visuals, and it really made it very visual and also easy to talk about, that you have 4 walls in your house, and you have a physical wall, which we pretty much understand. We know how much if your physical house fails, how that can affect your mental health. But we have a mental and emotional wall, and we have a social and connection wall, or whānau wall, and we also have a spiritual wall. And everyone's like, "Ooh, what's Wairoa?" But like they're very spiritually connected, I think. And as you probably know, you don't have to be religious to be spiritual, and you don't have to be spiritual to be religious. But what it is a interconnectedness with something other than yourself. And of course, we're very connected to animals. So we go into this job because we generally, I'd say 99.9% of us actually love working with animals. So we have a good spiritual wall that we don't really understand very well how powerful that is. We have a good physical wall generally. But our emotional and mental wall, not so good. The social connections definitely fell away over COVID. So that's really where it started, was during this COVID period where we didn't have good connections, and we were working very independently and away from our families and things. And that then went into 6 shields. So just a shield to learn how to breathe, one, how to learn how to rest, nourish our bodies through exercise, water, good food, and how that looks after our mental health, which is really interesting. So how, trans fats, for example, really change our mental health. And then a little bit about flow, which is like an acceptance of, the workspace that we're in and the pressurized healthcare environment, and the roller coaster days, and not really knowing or being able to strategize for a day. It's like you can't, we don't know all the outcomes, and being able to actually deal with that. A lot about equanimity and a response to stressors. And then going into a lot about forgiveness, if we do make a mistake, because that's oftentimes a fatal error in someone's beloved pet is, you can imagine how that feels, for your mental health, moving through that pain and learning from it, and growing your lotus from that experience. So, and then leading into compassion, which is a really interesting subject for all healthcare workers, because we are compassion junkies, and we get our dopamine hit from running into the fires, and looking after things and actually saving lives. However, we don't really understand that we also need to put 2 times as much fuel back in to actually do that again the next day. So a lot about self-care and compassion, and actually building on, your personal recipe to make that strong. Again, we're very good at ignoring that part of our preventative healthcare. So that was the program, and then just making it fun, implementation is the hardest bit, right? And I'm still working hard on that. But we did just take 10 minutes a day, and again, this is obviously leadership. Being able to say, well, we're going to just be doing this, team. There's no, you can just kind of lie down and listen, or else you can, if you feel better, you can go for a walk around the block, but you won't have your device and you won't be working during this time. And we learned little bite-sized bits together, and it grew, and the discussions happened, and we went from people actively not liking it, a fair percentage, because of you don't like what you don't know, and it feels bad, doesn't it, when you actually start to let some of the stuff in, and to a team of advocates, and now I guess it's a sort of a brand presence now, that part of our practice is that we are going to be looking after both ourselves, each other, and the organisation in this kind of way.
Yeah, it's pretty comprehensive on the individual side, and we regularly talk about, when we're talking about mental health harm at work, it's not necessarily the individual, it's not necessarily the work, and you talked about a number of the hazards associated with working in the veterinary industry, but it's when you've got a mismatch between the two. So to address that mismatch, you either change the work or you change the worker. And I guess what you're talking about there is, giving people a lot of, useful skills to be able to manage their emotions and manage their energy during, in a work environment that is not easily changed. I'm interested though. Was there any attempts at like work redesign interventions as well, or was it all focused on the individual? Yeah.
No, definitely. As you said, it was really integrated the approach. So really, job design, as you said, it's hard for us to have hybrid work situations when you really do need to have hands on animals to do our job. And again, we've still got travel to work and all sorts of things that make it hard. Depending on where you live, isolation, for example, in the middle of Australia, there's all sorts of things that make our job design quite difficult. After hours would be another one, vets are on a bound to actually look after animals day and night, and how does that work? And that's a sort of a vet council requirement that we are currently working through. So job design, definitely we could do what we could do, which is flexible work hours, and we were tracking all these with a professional quality of life surveys. So we had a lot of other stuff going into each bucket, into the positive as well, and we working with individuals on their own development. They definitely had flexi work hours, and we created rosters that worked for them. So there was a lot of autonomy within our team to create the job that was going to suit them as well. So I guess we took it from an all-pronged approach.
That was an intervention that was put in specifically for this program as well. That's what you're saying.
Not specifically for this program. So the Wellness Award was basically, for this program. And again, but we were doing other things because it was like, I guess for me, it would be unethical not doing that. It was like we had to do everything, put all our chips in the bucket. But and I guess the proactive wellbeing program was really just something that I thought would help, flourish or grow a foundation or a culture of looking after each other and being able to speak out, reducing stigmatism around mental health. So it did all of those things, but we weren't just doing one thing. I think as a employer, we were doing many things in different departments. Like individual development reviews was something that through discovery the team told us they wanted more of, and we put a lot of time and effort into that concurrently for sure.
Yeah, well, that's a great example of, like you say, you consulted with workers about what would work for them and then made some adjustments to what you could, which was more around the flexibility of the work. Like you say, you can't, do work from home if you're a vet, but...
not easily, but a little bit.
Yeah.
Little phone calls and stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So the Wellness Program Award was specifically focused on the wellness element of what you're doing, so more that...
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were some of the measurable improvements that you're able to identify through taking workers through that program?
Yeah, so we started using ProQuals or professional quality of life surveys, which I know is quite broadband, but it was free, and it's easy to institute. And we started it during COVID because I was worried about the team, and how do you check on them when you don't see them on a daily basis, and it was really hard to connect with them. And so we've been doing that for a wee while, but we just refined it. So we were looking at compassion, satisfaction scores, we're looking at burnout scores, and we're looking at secondary trauma. So those scores we tracked over a period of 18 months, and the intervention went in, and 6 months into 2021, and then we looked at the intervention, what it looked like then. So that was a single intervention that went in at that time. We were doing all the other stuff as well, but that was basically, start to finish. And what we did see was, different, we were tracking teams. So we're our front of house team, our veterinary team, our veterinary nurse team, which is a bigger team, and also our managerial team. So we're looking at all the scores across the board and just seeing, what was happening. And it was a lot of learnings from there, and we did see all teams improved over a period of time, and but the only thing that didn't really shift was the secondary trauma. So that was a bit up and down, and which was interesting, because that's a whole nother beast, isn't it? Tackling that, and again, I didn't really know much about trauma at that stage. It wasn't something that I, knew about. So again, didn't really address. So we did that, and we did sick leave, which was a bit of a nightmare anyway. But we did track it, and it did improve. So that was just could we track, and we did put a bit of effort into making things accessible, as far as good food and all sorts of concern, because it's quite a low wage industry. And then we tracked retention, which is what we really won the award for. And we've gone from 39% in 2022 down to 18% retention. So, a really good voluntary turnover rate reduction. And I guess that's why we won the award.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And that's the one we find that generally makes the CFO's heart sing, because the cost of replacing training people, and then obviously the reduction in quality of service when you've got new hires rather than established hires, all the rest. So that's terrific, and great to get both of those subjective measures as well as objective measures of the program, and the results. So fantastic, well done, well deserved, obviously, the award.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Sounds like it. So I think we've probably touched on this a little bit, but if we can maybe just get a little bit more specific, like what are the big psychosocial hazards in the veterinary sector? And I think like if we talk to first responders and we think that it's going to be the trauma and, the injuries and that sort of thing, that's the big ticket item, but a lot of the time it's actually not. It's like the bureaucracy and the poor organisational justice and the approach to leadership and those types of things that actually are the bigger sources of distress for people in those roles. So, like for people working in the veterinary sector, what are the big psychosocial hazards for them?
I think what we also did this a Not One More Vet. I don't know if you're familiar with Sophie's Legacy or Not One More Vets, but they're big foundations that have come out of high profile suicides or death by suicide in the veterinary industry. And they had a certification. It's a US crowd, and they had a healthy workplace certification, and we did that just to see. We're first in Australasia, and emotional fatigue definitely, is a big hitter here. And I think low wages and salaries came out very interesting, quite like as a big risk for the profession. So not feeling valued or rewarded for the work you actually do. And again, this is sort of industry-wide stuff. And also, so I guess emotional balance and energy levels. And I guess I think like the long work hours, the high pressure, financial stress, those are all quite, I guess, universal issues, aren't they? But I think high trauma exposure is something that's really just coming to the fore, and that study around the 5 or more euthanasias a week is the first of its kind. And you can imagine that emergency veterinarians, for example, do that easily. So I think that's something that's really unique to us as an industry, is that we're there, putting our hearts on our sleeves every single day. Yes, the client conflict is getting tougher, and certainly that is definitely affects mental health and burnout levels substantially when you're trying to save an animal life and you're being told, you only care about the money. But I think, we're going to have to look hard and fast at trauma within our profession, and really ways of actually, and again, we can learn so much from other professions who are leading the way in this. It's not just us that have trauma, and, that you've had military and first responders, and who are doing great work out there, and it really just needs to filter down into us.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about, military and first response is that people go into those with eyes open about that aspect of the work, and I feel like that's maybe not as much the case for people who want to study to be a vet, for example. They do it because they love animals, not because they want to be euthanizing animals. And, I think thinking about the conflict with the animal's owner is probably also not something that you would necessarily go into that profession with eyes open about, sort of thinking that that's actually going to be a significant part of the job that you're doing.
Yeah, it's funny during this conversation, I've been thinking about my own daughter, who loves animals and has said she'd love to be a vet. And I'm going, yeah, but it's not what you think. It's not about loving animals. It's about killing them. Like,
Well, and that,
it's all
like,
a
I
lot.
Not all
sort of
about
have,
killing them.
I reckon
A
there's
lot of
it
it
sounds
is.
like a lot of killing to me.
but like that was
99% not killing. Let's
Yeah,
be
I mean,
clear.
when I was in primary school, I also wanted to be a vet, and then I did actually kind of think about it and go, well, how much of that is going to be like animals in distress and that sort of stuff that's actually going to be
That's why they come and see a vet, right?
yeah, well, that's it. And yeah, I mean, yeah, preventative healthcare and vaccinations and puppy training classes and all of that kind of stuff is fantastic. But yeah, a significant portion of it is actually, here's this animal that's in pain and I've got limited options in terms of what I can actually do about it. Yeah, that's not probably a source of joy for a lot of people.
No, and I think the normalization of that, so that's another thing that we're just like, well, that's just part of the job, and this is what we're being told to put that in your little box and put it in the box of warehouses that is now overstacked with boxes of little bits of trauma that we thought was just part of our job, and I think that's a big thing. It's like, okay, it is part of our job, but like are there tools to actually deal with this? And as you well know, there are, and we just didn't have access to them. So I think that's the big, I guess, lesson when we start, talking about psych hazards and risk mitigation in our industry, is really to start unpacking those boxes one by one, which we haven't wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah, and so I think like lots of things would be, I guess, similar challenges or similar hazards to other types of small business. What are the more unique elements of veterinary practice compared to other small businesses?
Well, I think we are like a mini hospital, So again, it's the way we work is, we are sort of open 8 till 6, for example, and on weekends, and oftentimes we do need to provide after hour services as well, which is really difficult, in rural settings. So we're unique in that we have to, we serve a community, but we are a small business. We're not funded by any healthcare dollars from the government, so there's a real disparity in what people think healthcare costs compared to what it actually costs, because they never see that bill, from their trauma. For example, they got run over and, were in months in hospital. They would never see that $500,000 bill, whereas we're giving it to the owner and saying, yes, please, could you please pay this so that you can support our business to keep on going. So I think for us is, we are like a hospital, we're very caring, but it is user pays, and from that, we've got empathetic relationship, strong people being told, they're sort of money hungry pythons or whatever, and there's this horrible conflict that can happen in the veterinary setting, when all that we're trying to do is actually look after you and your pet, and do our best every day. So again, for a small business, I think we are. I mean, I guess dentists are a little bit the same, to tell the truth. High setup fees, but they're constantly getting slagged through the media as well as the veterinarians about the pet costs this much, and I think it's we really need to even the playing field, and I guess make the invisible visible as a small business owners, and just make sure that people understand how our business is actually run, and that's not just on empathy and love and our the way that our teams would do anything to save an animal's life. So again, it's a difficult industry to be in long term, but we do it because we love it and because the world needs us. We're at the epicenter of human animal kind, so we need to be like out there and actually looking after the world. That's just our very unique place as veterinarians. Yeah.
Well, Megan, it has been a fascinating conversation with you. Like Joelle said at the beginning, you're the first person to represent your industry on here. So thanks for coming on and sharing some of the challenges. As a listener of the podcast, you would probably know the question coming up, because we like to ask this towards the end of each of our episodes. And that is this: if you were to think about the future, what would you hope for the future of workplace mental health, particularly in your industry?
I think I kind of feel like shed the imposter syndrome, which is something I had to do, because I'm like, what am I doing talking to Joelle, the organisational psychologist? I think it is be the change you want to see in the world. You have to, we all have to actually step up. We've been waiting a long time for somebody else to do this job for us, and I think everyone in our industry needs to collaborate and step up and actually just get on with doing it ourselves. So I think implementation is key. So we really have to work out how this actually works in our difficult, job design of working 8 till 6 and after hours. So we have to actually decide how we're going to implement some of these changes into and infiltrate, I guess, some of the historic obstacles to this change, and turn it around to say that, if we can get our teams engaged and if we can look after our people, then we will have sustainable, successful, profitable businesses. And that's whether you're a corporate entity versus your new business starting out. It works right across the board. And then I guess, we're going to have to start understanding the regs, so as you said, it's like, oh, okay, that's, work safe coming, okay, we're going to need to get ahead of that, because we definitely have a lot of poor mental health in the industry. So as business owners, we need to understand, what that looks like for us. And lots of good stuff, and hope and optimism that the tides are changing, and this will come faster than we thought, because we've been stuck in the mud for a long time.
Yeah, you need that hope and optimism, that's for sure.
But hey, you're spreading it out there. Look what I'm doing. Yeah.
So words of advice for people who want to work in the area of psych health and safety.
Oh, I'm going to turn this around and ask you. Can you? I'd like to work in this area.
Megan, that's not how it works.
I'm like, please, someone tell me the answer to this.
Well, maybe advice for other people who, whose job it isn't, I guess, directly, but maybe as a small business owner who might be thinking about, well, how can I do this for myself with my staff in my business without having that expertise and education and experience? What would you suggest to them?
I think find your passion. Where a lot of business owners are passionate about their people. We just get worn down. We just have too many hats, and we get worn down, and we think we have to do everything. And I think that is the lovely thing about health and safety, is it's our responsibility. So our means team buy-in, and understanding that the word our means that you don't have to do anything, but you do have to ask, and feedback from the people are important. And then really, I guess, creating a roadmap that they want to go down. So as I think health and safety is a very powerful thing, and it is a ball that got passed around our business, and it kept on coming back to me. I'm like, nobody wanted it. This ball just going around. And because I was interested in mental health, I ended up with it. But from there, I was like, wow, this is a powerful ball to have if you can get it right. If you can actually engage your team and be talking health and safety, and especially psych health and safety and mental health and wellbeing in the industry, we're one step ahead of everyone else. So just get into it, just do it. Again, I keep listening because I want resources from you guys about, courses and where to do next. And I know that Flourish DX is it's quite sort of big industry, isn't it? So you just need a small business product as well. There's my pitch.
Yeah, it's hard because, like you say, small businesses don't have a lot of resources either. So, hey, if the government wants to fund us to do a small business product, we're well up for it. But yeah, Megan, like I said, fantastic talking to you. Fascinating industry, obviously very big and wicked problems that you need to solve in the industry. And like you say, it's a community effort. You can't do it on your own. This is a global problem for anyone working in these roles. Where could people go if they're interested about learning more about what they could do in your industry, or where does your community gather who are trying to make a change?
Well, we've got the NZVA, which is New Zealand Veterinary Association, and the Australian Veterinary Association have really come to the fore in the last, I guess, probably just like the last couple of years about making, headway into this area. And again, like we've got this wellness and business symposium that I'm part of a group of the NZVA called the Veterinary Business Branch. And we're putting it on to show that, good health and well-being in your business, or health and safety in your business equals good business. So again, just really like tapping into those resources via those organizations or associations is probably the first place to start. There is a growing movement around the world, as you'll know, knowing Phil, that these talks 3 years ago were never on a conference agenda, and now with the current veterinary shortage and global issues in the industry, they're on every agenda. So you don't have to go far to learn more now.
Yeah, that's terrific. Well, Megan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing, and we look forward to keeping in touch over LinkedIn.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about it.
Well, listeners, that brings us to the end of this episode. Remember, we do video these when we have these conversations with our guests, so you can catch those videos on the Flourish DX YouTube page. We also take short snippets and put them on the Flourish DX LinkedIn page if you want to follow along the conversation over there. You'll also find snippets from our USA and Canada podcast. You'll also find that Joelle and I frequent LinkedIn probably a little bit too much, so if you want to continue the conversation over there with us two or Megan, that's a good place to do it as well. But that's it for today. We'll catch you next episode.
You've been listening to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. To stay up to date with the latest on psychological injury prevention, follow Flourish DX on LinkedIn and subscribe to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast at www.psychealthandsafety.com.